Hey, it's Recovery Mom, and I want to talk for a minute about something. I just saw a video, a TikTok, about somebody that was saying that when you have a restrictive eating disorder and you're binging on unhealthy type foods, it's probably because you're feeling unsafe in your body. And if you binge on the unhealthy foods, those are unsafe, and it's just going to drive you into further binges or something to that effect. And I just want to talk a little bit about like the biology or the brain chemistry that's happening to us. So mammals, we tend to think that we do everything we do because we're choosing, right? This kind of like free will mentality. We're choosing to eat the unhealthy food, or we're choosing to restrict, or we're choosing to exercise how much we're exercising. When in fact, we know we have these, research studies now to show that we have brain chemicals, neurotransmitters that are responsible for these things, that drive us primally to survival, right? So we have brain chemistry that, makes us want to eat. If we did not have that brain chemistry telling us to seek out food, we would die. We have brain chemistry telling us to move our bodies, right? And so binging is a reaction of different chemistry changes in your brain, different neurotransmitters, things that are happening. And all of these things have happened to us over time, evolutionarily, in our family genetic history. Okay? So for example, if your family tends to store fat or have binge eating disorder, those kind of things, that comes from, and I just want to pause and say, let's have some empathy and love for our ancestors who used that as a mechanism of surviving famine so that we could be here today. Okay, so I know today it feels bad and wrong to have binge eating disorder or ARFID, right? ARFID comes from a time evolutionarily when we moved onto the savannas and the food sources were often poisonous, or we were eating rotten leftover food from prey animals like lions and things like that. And so it was the people with ARFID that became hypersensitive to unsafe foods that were the ones whose families, whose genes moved along and survived those times. Just like anorexia was was evolutionary from a time when we moved and traveled to find different lands when there was famine and food became scarce, okay? So our bodies all reacted to those times differently. Now we have these eating disorders because once upon a time, they saved our ancestors' lives. So we can't forget that. Our brains tend to use what it can in our surroundings to make sense of what we're feeling and doing now. But we have to remember what we're feeling and doing is because our brain is sending us signals to do those things. So yes, it feels like you're eating emotionally, right? And you're binging on these foods because of X, Y, and Z, because you broke up, because you did this. And sure, that may start it, right? But if you have a restrictive eating disorder, there's brain chemistry changes that have happened to you. If you have binge eating disorder, there's brain chemistry changes that have happened in your brain. If you have ARFID, you have brain chemistry changes that happened because you went into energy deficit, right? You could do that at any size. You went into energy deficit, these brain chemistry changes happened, and now you have binge eating disorder, ARFID, right? Anorexia, bulimia, whichever eating disorder it is. And now you're expressing the symptoms, what we call a disorder nowadays, but during the times of your ancestors, you were literally heroes and you were the ones surviving, whether it's from storing fat or, in the case of anorexia, hallucinating fat on your body and moving too much, right? And not eating, having an aversion to food, or whether it's ARFID, which is being hyper aware of foods that your brain deems as unsafe, right? All of those things come down the line in our genes, and that's where those come from. So don't discount that. Just take a moment to remember, once upon a time, it wasn't a bad thing, right? So now we have this eating disorder. We know where it comes from, and we just have to right it again. We just have to do the opposite actions. We have to do what we have to do, which is terribly hard, I know, because it's going against your survival instincts. Because when we have an eating disorder, it's activated those survival instincts in our brain, right? Because it is primal, it is survival. But now that we know that, we can fight against it. But we do need to know where it comes from. And there's plenty of research now to show this, okay? So I'm gonna go to work. Sorry, I just had this quick rant. I hope you have a good day. It's Friday here. Have a good Friday.